that really sucked. I did a really good job explaining this real estate boot camp thing, okay? And I realized my reception wasn't good, and it didn't even record, which sucks. Okay, so if you want to, let's try this again. I need to roll my windows down. It's hot. Okay, so the title is Real Estate Boot Camp. And like I said, I just done this really good video for you guys, I think. But I guess God said it wasn't good enough. And I'm moving it around because it's dark. And, and anyway, so basically Real Estate Boot Camp. For buyers, it's, do you have the credit? Do you have the cash? Are you prepared? Are you, and a lot of people I call need to save. They're like, well, I think I need to look at houses first. I thought I need to look at a house first. And I say, no, you don't. You need to talk to a lender first. And hold on, this lighting's driving me crazy. There we go. You need to talk to a lender first, okay? And do you know what your credit score is? If they don't know what their credit score is, chances are they're probably not going to qualify. But even so, let's say they say, a lot of times they know. They say, well, I need to build my credit. I've been working on my credit. And I'll say, well, do you know what your score is? And they'll say whatever. So I look at it like this way. I'll say, you know, if you want to buy a home, you need at least this credit score, and tell me how much cash you have. Tell me what your credit is, and then we'll work towards a goal. So I call that the stepping on the scale and your measuring part. Okay, so now we've assessed you. We've figured out where you're at, right, for the buyer. And then we say, okay, now this is where we need to go. We need to save this much money. And if you're buying a $100,000 house, Carl, you're going to be like, $100,000 house? Can you buy a $100,000 house? That's like a car, because you're in Hawaii. But let's say you have a $100,000 house. You're going to want about $7,500 cash. Now you may only need maybe $5,000, because you can get the seller sometimes to pay for your closing costs if you offer the full price. But that just gives people an idea of what it's going to cost them and what they're going to need, right, when they buy their home. And sometimes it sucks because people are like, oh my gosh, my credit's so bad, and I didn't realize, you know, $150,000 house is going to cost me X amount. And I was thinking, I'm spending $800 now, and I'm thinking, if you don't have cash and you don't have credit and you don't have, you know, you can't afford more, you just can't do it. So there's this getting real. We have to go to the lender, stage 1 boot camp. Stage 2, if you're not prepared, right, and a lot of people aren't, they don't quite understand, you have to say, okay, well, I need to save money, I need to build my credit. You might even need to get a prepaid credit card, and that really helps build credit, and you can ask me about that. It was phenomenal. The first time I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, we went up like 20 points in a month. We were at like I think we're at a 600, and we need to be at a 620, and we got this, I think it was MasterCard, Premier One MasterCard, and it was crazy. So it really works if you do it right. So then, and then you have to cut back on, you know, how many people, even when they don't make that much money, they go out to lunch every day, or they grab a takeout on the way home, or a Starbucks, or pay for a coffee. And that's probably 2 to 3 times as much money as you need to spend a day on food and comfort and coffee. If you suck it up and you pack your lunches and you make your coffee, and you could save yourself $20 a day, and that adds up. Okay, so there's certain things we need to do. And as far as sellers go, you know, sellers have to do their own little boot camp. Sometimes, you know, how often do those of us that sell homes come across a seller that's like, well, these homes are this, and my home's worth this, and I, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, but in order for it to be what you're talking about, you're going to need to get some fresh paint, fresh flooring, and do this and that. Now, are you willing to do that? Well, and I'm like, it could be worth that, but, you know, that's only if you do these things. Now, for example, I really encourage, and sometimes they don't because they're like, my house is fine, I've taken care of it, I know there's no issues. But I'll strongly encourage them to get a home inspection, a plumbing inspection, a foundation inspection, and if the roof's old, get a roof bid. And if you know there's other issues, electrical issues, get the electrician in there and figure out what your electrical issues are and get a bid to upgrade or put in GFCIs or breakers or whatever. Okay, so get them in there, because that's the stepping on the scale. That's saying, okay, I don't really want to know what's wrong with me. I really don't want to see how big my waistline is now. But in order to work towards that 6-month goal for me, and I'm talking about me with weight loss and getting back into fitness, I'm now hope this dream and this desire that is before me, this goal, I have to assess myself where I'm at realistically, and then have a realistic plan to get there. And so same thing with real estate, whether you're buying or selling. If you're selling, get that home inspection, face the facts. Oh my gosh, I have a plumbing leak. Oh my gosh, I have a foundation issue. Oh, I really need a new roof. It's going to be $7,500 or $12,000. You know, I have to be ready to credit people for carpet. And let's find out where we're at, price the home accordingly, maybe price it high, to account for, well, I'm willing to do the roof and this is what I'd sell it for. So price it another 10 grand higher than what you would sell without the roof. But realistically, lenders won't loan on some of these roofs. So you have to be prepared to do that and just make a plan. So the boot camp is saying, hey, this can be painful sometimes, in a house, there's disappointments and things that happen, but you have a goal. You have something to look forward to, or the finish line, maybe not boot camp, maybe it's finish line or whatever, but you're looking towards this, and ideally you have a realtor who's going to know what to see, work towards, who can point you in the right direction, whether you're a buyer or seller. So to minimize surprises and last minute drama, and don't give up. I gave an example of my friend who I met her, and she knew as a realtor, and she's like, man, I really want to buy a house, and I was talking to her about I have to work on my credit and I don't have much cash, and she disciplined herself, and it was 3 years later. It took 3 years to get to the place where she bought a beautiful 4-bedroom, 3-bath home that she loves. But she buckled down and she did what we talked about, and it took 3 years, but it was worth it. That goal was before her, and she went after it. And when people want to sell a home and you want to sell it in a timely manner, look ahead to the realistic goal and do what you need to do to achieve it. And don't be mad at the realtor if you have unrealistic goals. I had a seller one time, and the house was a mess, and really it needed at least 100, 150. Like, if you hired contractors, minimum 100 grand to get this thing up and running. And I asked her, do you want to sell it just for, to an investor? Because if someone buys it and doesn't plan to be an investor and live in it, they might spend, $175, but you're going to need to fix the plumbing. You're going to need to fix this. You're going to need to fix that. And that's like a good 10 grand right there. And so I had an investor willing to pay like 150, 155. Well, a relative of this person calls me and gets all frustrated with me, thinks I'm trying to take advantage of this old person. And I'm thinking, no, I'm trying to help them. I don't want them to have this headache of trying to get plumbers in there, trying to get all this stuff in there. And this is the value of the home. And they're like, well, it's worth $280 on the tax records. I'm like, have you seen the layout? Have you seen the condition? Have you seen the kitchen? It's like tiny. And I know what that house is going to sell for. And that relative was thinking I was some sort of crooked realtor that was just trying to make a buck. And I wasn't even going to charge them for the other side, and I'm like, good riddance. So they listed it 100 grand more, or more than that, like more than 100 grand more than what it was worth. And it's a mess, and didn't even disclose stuff. And I'm like, no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want to work with someone that's going to be mad at me that they're not losing weight because they're not working out and they're eating junk. And then they're like, well, why isn't it selling? I'm like, why am I not losing weight? Well, duh. You're not real. So anyway, boot camp, buyers and sellers, you both have things you need to do. When you're a buyer, you do not go look at property unless you are pre-approved. People are like, well, I just want to see what's out there. Well, I'm not going shopping if I don't know how much money I have. I mean, you might find a house that you love and you can't even qualify. Or you might be looking at houses that are really dumpy and you could get better. That's a waste of your time. Get pre-approved. That's not pre-qualified. Pre-approved means they look at your paperwork, they look at your taxes, they look at your income, they look at your credit, they look at it all. They don't just talk to you and give you a pre-approval. Oh yeah, you say you made this, oh you made that, and then they find out you're paying alimony, or they find out that you have, some school debt or something. No, get pre-approved, and it's a pain in the butt, honestly. I think but it's what you have to do. So suffer temporarily for a greater gain. And hopefully this one goes and I don't get cut off. Have a great day.